Basically, what I'm saying is like when you look at parents teaching their children to hate, a lot of the times it's because of the benefits that come with hating a particular group of people. So it's not a 50-50 situation in most cases. In most cases, it's um it's more of a targeting of an oppressed people or a people that are in a weaker position that receive the hatred. Rarely do you see a situation where a people that are either oppressed or are in a weaker social position teaching their children to hate. They're more teaching their children to survive. Whereas you have people, right, that are in a more comfortable position, they tend to teach their children to hate. Most of the times that's what you see. Now you may have a situation where you know parents may teach their children to hate a particular race or whatever uh people from other countries or whatever. But a lot of the times, it's really more of a social construct of benefit. There's a benefit from teaching your children to hate this group of people. And like how I said earlier, it's rare that it's a situation where people that are in a subjugated position, it's very rare where their children are necessarily teaching their children not only to hate, but to go out into the world and spread their hate because they don't have the power to do it like that.
You have to separate. You're saying when you listen to politicians, because politicians is instrumentalization of their messages that they're giving to the audience with a specific goal to achieve a specific goal. Let me just say is that, and they do not see any grants. They do not think that they need boundaries because their goal is being defined, and that is the message that they want to get out there. So when we're talking about politicians, I think we need to always look at politicians as people who are tools of of promoting that whatever that they have, if it is oppression, if it is division in the society, or trying to achieve their goals. That is what I think the politicians are and do. Yeah. And they do not see it within the moral, because the moral barometer for the politicians is already, they don't have any, if you ask me. I'm yet to find a politician that I can say, yeah, this one has still the moral barometer. I'm yet to see. But when we talk about, I found that what on site was saying, so complex. I'm not sure whether everybody's going to get onto it, because it was very deep and yet very complex. When I think about it and just try to break it, what he was actually talking about is what, when I look at Africa and I look at the different, I don't want to use the same words that have been always used, but right now I don't have a word for it, and that is the tribes, because tribe is like race, a social construct, right? So that we work and navigate our lives around that what we were told to believe to be true. So I bring up my child based on the fact that I was never told, for example, why I should hate the Igbos. I'm conforming to this, and I think this is the right thing that should be done. I'm not out to find out what can happen. And my grandparents told me, when you look at an Igbo person, please pass this way, please do this way. So we bring up our children based on how we were brought up, and our lack of critical questioning. Is that what brings in the issue that you want to talk about? We bring our children to hate. We do not see it as hate per se. When you ask somebody, they just say, as we were told that we should always never. I remember that somebody was telling me, I helped this lady online, never met her before. Her sister was in a very, very precarious situation, and with with human trafficking, etc. I helped her because the situation was for me precarious and I needed to help her. I did not look at where she came from, what tribe, etc. We managed to get her out, get her sorted, get her on her feet. And the sister called me back and tells me, we were always told that you should never talk to the Luo people. So you just sit there and you wonder, okay, that you didn't see that coming. You don't know what to ask. Because for me at that point, I was helping a human being. I was not helping an ethnia. Yeah. So when we look at what he was talking about, and I'm looking at the African continent, I think that is exactly where we need to, those things that we've internalized, or somebody who was saying, I don't speak my language, and does not seem to think it is, something to worry about, to find out where is it coming from. It comes from the fact that I was brought up in a generation where speaking your mother tongue was, I would be beaten in school. Yes, we were beaten in school. We were not allowed to speak our mother tongue. As a matter of fact, the mother tongue was not called mother tongue. It was downgraded to what was then called vernacular to make it even sound primitive. And we were never allowed to speak it simply because of it. They needed a group of people that was indoctrinated, and you cannot indoctrinate people when they can speak their language and you can speak their language, and they can give themselves coded messages. So they had to make sure that the next generation of children never speak their language. And you even find, as a member of parliament here in Germany, was at her event, and the younger parents were asking her, looking up on her, she's a role model, asked her, should I teach my child our mother tongue? And she said, definitely not. That those primitive languages, this is in 2019, those primitive languages, where are they going to take your children? Teach your children Mandarin, Japanese, Spanish, Italian.
I think we need to. I can already see a pattern that repeats within the Black community of this division. We need to understand that, yes, tribalism did exist, and the colonial powers, we were separated and split, and we were forced to live within a smaller place. So, I mean, if we can say, for example, I'm Ugandan, Kenya and Uganda used to be under as one, and and it was only when the British colonial system came into there and under their railway system divided us. We need to understand the history of tribalism and its link to colonialism and the reasons as to why we are so divided in how we feel. Divisions, if you are amalgamating two different tribes into one small space, they're going to conflict, they're going to disagree. But when we go into the topic around why teach children hate, I've lived in Germany now for over 8 years, and from the age of 3, my daughter was told in her kita by another child, people that look like you don't belong in this kita. And the kita and the parent, they went on the defensive. And hence why we came up with Kids Simply. So, Kids Simply, in the process of us doing it, we had to understand where this had stemmed from because the teachers seemed to believe that this child chose to use the words they did because they hear it on the street. And I don't believe that. Children choose to repeat what they hear from trusted individuals. And those trusted individuals are in a community where they all believe one consensus that immigrants are bad or people who are brown are bad. We know the history of German, we know the history of Europe. It wasn't that long ago that we were actually used as animals in cages. There were pictures that are evidence of that. So when I came to approach the Kita, my aim was not to teach children about our differences, but it was to celebrate it. And what I learned is that kids aren't born to hate. Kids are at such young ages where they are sponges, and whatever they see and hear, they mimic. The first people that are around them are sometimes the same color, and what they do and how they act around other people, they mimic. So we can't teach children empathy, and we can't always say that it's the white person doing this because it happens vice versa. Colorism is an issue as well. What kids do is that they learn and they adapt. What we need to do as individuals is teach kids that what they are learning from those that they trust is actually misinformation. We need to allow them to celebrate what makes us uniquely different, our cultures, everything that they can see so they can take away with it. And the perfect example where I've done this is I've gone into the key to where my daughter was, and rather than create a big massive fuss or shout at the teachers or do whatever, I brought in skin color pencils and I brought in books that represented our culture and who we are and allowed kids to just see that. The mindset immediately changed, and it wasn't even planned, but the child who actually said it came and apologized. Nobody had told him to do so. Now, fast forward 3 years later, or 3 or 4 years later, my daughter's in school. The same thing repeats itself. Now, we had different incidences. We approached the parents. We did a presentation in the parents' evening, and the consensus from parents was that, well, we get the same kind of attitude when we go to Africa. And we educated them that this is not the same behavior you receive in Africa. In Africa, there's some smaller villages where people have never seen a Mzungu, aka a white person. They are more fascinated than looking at you like you don't belong there. But when you come to, let's say, here in Germany, this hostility to say the color of your skin does not, you shouldn't be here. I go out to a lot of places where I'm not invited, selling our products. Our products is products that represent that people that look like us. And in Germany, they still use the words, excuse me for saying it, nigger pooping. And we normally batting back at them. There's a lot of hidden games that pre-exist here in Germany that we're trying to challenge. There's a game that most of you must know called Schwarzer Peter. If you know the history of Schwarzer Peter, it was a black person with big lips, very dark, and whoever had that card was the loser. This game is still very popular in across all of Europe, Holland, Germany, you can name wherever. So we challenge people to think about the games they put into society. It wasn't that long ago in Keita's, I would say over 20 years ago, there was a game which was chase the black person, chase, I'm not even going to say the full context of it. And, kids were unbeknown that that was actually racial. I think we need to move away from the fact of teaching hate. If you want an example of what actually is happening, look at America. When you build a community, in itself, you tell them that this person's different and this is why we need to change it. And people follow that. So now this is the connotation that's going on as the reason for the rise of the far right. In America, they're saying that immigrants are bad, even though the most resourceful people in that country, Germany, is playing the same fourth. And when we go to Africa, we repeat what we were programmed by our colonial rulers. We repeat it continuously. And in these discussions, we repeating what we were programmed to do, talk over each other and respectively not listen to our differences. I've got my sister who's from Kenya. Kenya, we are sisters and brothers. I've got my sister from Ghana, South Africa. We should more be looking for something that connects us and how we can move forward. The term of why teach children hate is how can we change the mindset of a child before it's too late to realize that we are all one because they are the future. They are the ones that are going to change the game. We can't always look at the fact of what they say and do. Those are they are hearing it from adults who have long gone in terms of their mindset of how they think of us as a race, and they are programmed by what they see on the media, which is quite naive. And sometimes I'm more often challenging people because I'm often asking people, because my child is coming back to me and saying to me, people in my school say that Africans have no shoes, have no homes. And I'm often going into those schools and challenging the parents and saying, actually, where do most of the natural resources that you use come from? For example, the phones that we hold, where do those lithium batteries come from? Where, if you want to delve deeper, if you look at, for example, the history of Uber, the idea came from Kenya. You can look that up. But we need to educate ourselves and learn to educate and challenge the people who are quite naive in terms of what they are thinking of us. And then through that, we need to also educate the younger people because they are just learning, they are sponges. If you teach a young child a new language, it takes a week or even that up until the age of 12 for them to learn it. My daughter can speak Lugandan much better than me in an instant. So it's how we change the mindset, what we do different. And through what we can do different is allow them to see the beauty of our cultures. Every single person that's coming from Africa is coming from a rich tapestry where they have such amazing, beautiful things to display. In Uganda, for example, for me, I'm coming from the Pearl of Africa, and people may disagree or not, but we are in the middle of the equator. Amazing weather, amazing lifestyle. You can grow anything there that you want. Let's celebrate this. Let's not divide ourselves and challenge ourselves as to why this and this is happening. Let's delve deeper. I mean, it's controversial, but if you delve deeper to the current situation of Congo, who is manipulating that? Who is behind all of this? If you talk about Uganda historically, Idi Amin, who everybody famously talks about, was trained by the British. It's only when he challenged them he became bad and realized. But before, during his time, actually, Uganda had 5 airports. Uganda was thriving. He was challenging what was repeating itself, where we had an Indian community that were treating us lesser. And he challenged this, but the narrative through Hollywood and all other aspects has changed. In Germany, historically, people still believe that Idi Amin is still alive and we eat people. That's the arrogance and ignorance of society based on what they see and hear. We need to change this narrative. We need to think of what can we do better for our community. And that's my 2 cents. So you may see me go out of this, but I don't want us to be divided in this moving forward. We are in challenging times where we need to be more united, more so than ever.